You're listening to the only podcast that admits they might know what they are talking about.
Hello?
This is We Might Know Sports
I hope everyone has a ball.
with Steffan,
Go with a topic Cory might like. I don't even know.
Kevin,
You might like it, Corey. He just doesn't know.
and Cory.
Sounds like something a guy in a van would tell me.
All right, we are live for episode 19. And fortunately for the listeners, you have to worry about that first co-host because once again, he is not here. So 2 for 3 of the last podcast now. Steffan is MIA. He'll make a video appearance. Got that recorded, but it's kind of hard to call him a co-host if he's not really hosting anymore, isn't it, Cory?
Yeah, it's starting to become a trend.
Once is a oddity, twice is a trend, right? Isn't that
Correct.
I mean, what? I don't pay him enough, apparently?
Apparently, he doesn't work for free anymore.
Ah, jeez. He makes one video that gets over 100 views, and now he wants more money and doesn't show up for podcasts.
Well, he was always the diva of the three.
All right, so we'll get to his awesome, amazing top 5 in a little bit. We also have what caused the top 5, the Ryan Leaf story that was on ESPN that no one watched, apparently. But I do want to talk about it a little bit because I want to watch it. We also will be talking about the NHL and some NASCAR. Seeing how it was All-Star Weekend this past weekend, our picks weren't for that, and they're actually for this current weekend, which is the Coca-Cola 600, or did that change names, Cory?
Nope, Coca-Cola 600 at the Charlotte Motor Speedway.
All right, but the first topic of the day is the NBA, something I know so much about. I know. So I will try and give my 2 cents for you, Cory, as much as possible, but I only have a couple clips. I think we can power through this, though. Did you watch last night's game?
I did.
I didn't, and Steffan didn't, and we'll get to some reasons why afterward. And well, actually, I don't really care about his reasons why he didn't watch it, but the Cleveland Cavaliers blew what? Was it a
21.
21-point lead?
Yes.
I saw the lead, and I was going to tune in, and I chose to watch John Oliver's last week tonight instead because I thought that would be more entertaining. Apparently, I was wrong because I did watch the highlight of the last second shot, basically, because there was 1/10 of a second going. Mm-hmm. Was it because of LeBron's poor game, or was it just a general off game for the team?
The team started to, well, I mean, you can blame it on either the offense or the Boston defense, but Cleveland started to turn the ball over a lot more. They got slappy. They seemed to get real comfortable with their lead. Part of it was LeBron playing poorly. I think he shot 4 of 13 or something like that. Pretty poor. But I don't see a lot of excuse because Kevin Love had a great game. Kyrie Irving had a good game. Even J.R. Smith had a good game. So I feel like it was more carelessness. And it is the NBA. This is the playoffs. Just because you have a team beaten, they aren't going to quit. So the Celtics kept clawing their way in.
So the next game's not until Tuesday, so tomorrow night on TNT. The entire Eastern Conference is on TNT at 8:30 Eastern time, I believe. Pretty sure that's Eastern time. That's kind of late if it's West Coast.
Yeah.
So I called I believe it was game. I said 5 game. You called the sweep. We'll get to the reasons why at the end of the show. I'm going to save that bonus clip from Steffan for the end. But are you really surprised, though, that they did have this one bad game?
Am I surprised that they had a bad game?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone has a bad game once in a while. I'm surprised that LeBron having a bad game means a loss for Cleveland. I thought they had better. He had better counterparts this year. Had a really good team built around him. That if he did have a poor outing, it wouldn't affect the outcome of the game so much. I was really shocked to see that one bad game for LeBron, and it's over. So that makes me a little weary going into the championship, assuming Cleveland gets by Boston and assuming Golden State gets past San Antonio. If LeBron doesn't play well, apparently Cleveland's in trouble.
Apparently, and after Game 2's blowout, that was 130-86, there was some comments made by a bunch of people, especially the very oftentimes controversial Stephen A. Smith. And I'm going to play this clip all the way through, and I want your reaction to it and if you agree with him.
And say Boston just had a bad night, but the reality is they're completely outclassed. They look like a JV team compared to a pro team, not a varsity team, but a pro team in the Cleveland Cavaliers. We all know that LeBron James is the best player in the world. We understand that. We get that. But Kevin Love with his 21 points, 4 of 9 shooting from three-point range. Kyrie Irving plays 33 minutes, drops 23. The Cleveland Cavaliers are walking around laughing at every turn, completely and utterly embarrassing the Boston Celtics to the point where the MVP of the game shouldn't be any of them. It should actually be Isaiah Thomas for being smart enough not to come out for the second half because of that right hip strain. The fact of the matter is, why subject yourself to such an atrocity, which is exactly what this was. It has me looking at every GM in the league, wondering why somebody couldn't do something to make themselves competitive before the trading deadline, primarily teams within the Eastern Conference, obviously, but I'm thinking about Golden State as well, even though we know that San Antonio can play. Overall, you're just absolutely disgusted. And just to put things into perspective, my man Tim Legler's going to start laughing when I say this. I cut off the game midway through the second quarter en route to Cleveland, outscoring Boston 40-13. And you know what I did? I'm not ashamed to admit it. I actually ran out the house. I went and got some White Castle. I said, the hell with it. I'm just going to go and just eat some White Castle and chill out. There's no need to watch this game. And you know, you're piggyback and forth, watch Real Time with Bill Maher, watch some of my General Hospital TiVo episodes. I don't have time to watch some nonsense like this. It's a disgrace. It's embarrassing. They should be embarrassed for the product that's been put out there compared to Golden State, San Antonio, and Cleveland this year, because there is so much subpar basketball. And as far as I'm concerned, this was the latest example of it. I don't think this would have happened to the Wizards, not in this fashion, not with too big a guard.
So do you agree with him? I mean, do you think if the Wizards played, you think it would be as many blowouts?
No, I do agree with him because, like we've said numerous times, styles make fights. And I just thought Washington matched up better. But to bring up something I haven't heard any of these sports analysts talk about is Boston better without Isaiah Thomas?
It looked like it. I mean, and Steffan brings this up as well in our later clip. I mean, who knows what's going to happen without Isaiah Thomas in for the rest of the playoffs, correct?
Correct. I just felt like they moved the ball around. It wasn't so much let's give our best player the ball and watch him work. It was a team basketball. Everyone chipped in to get the win. They just seemed more cohesive on offense. And then on defense, he's always a liability. He's so small. There's been that meme going around. I don't know if you've seen it. And GIFs going around of Isaiah Thomas trying to block LeBron James. It's kind of funny.
I think I briefly saw it.
Yeah, so I mean, he's not a great defender, and when he's out, you can play Marcus Smart, who that's his strength. So I think it's very interesting. Maybe if the Celtics go on to win a couple games, Isaiah Thomas is on that trading block, especially if they can get Markelle Fultz with that #1 pick.
I mean, that gives Boston a lot of options with that #1 pick and the fact that they performed a lot better. Granted, it's just one game, so we'll see if it repeats. I mean,
Yeah, it's just one game. I mean, is LeBron going to play that poorly again? I don't know.
Or is he going to come out and score 81 points?
Right.
So who knows? We'll see tomorrow, and we'll report back to you. The other series, however, I believe no one went with a clean sweep. However, as it stands, tonight is Game 4, and Golden State is in a very well to bring out those brooms, as you like to say, Corey.
Yeah, and I think it's going to happen. San Antonio was really, really affected by the loss of Kawhi Leonard.
I mean, we talked about it last week, just how they blew, the 26-point lead?
Yeah. Think about it. They're out their starting small forward and their starting point guard, Tony Parker, was injured in the series before. So they're down two starters against a very good Golden State team. They probably aren't going to take a game. I think me and Steffan said LaMarcus Aldridge would have to score 40 points a game for them to even be competitive, and he's not doing that. So,
but you both also said 6.
Yeah,
I said 5, so I'm hoping for a loss tonight. Because I want to be better than Steph. Someone's got to be, right?
Yeah.
So with that, we're running out of topics, I guess you could say, because you got the Major League Baseball, but it's still early on, and you don't really want to talk about it. But there is a new trend starting in sports, or if you want to call it a sport, and I guess Corey and I will be debating that in just a minute. However, the NBA has started a NBA 2K sports league. I don't know if you heard about this, Corey.
I did a little research after you brought it up to me.
So there's 17 teams that are sponsoring, including the Boston Celtics and Cavaliers, as we've mentioned them, also Golden State. San Antonio is missing, so maybe that's got something to do with their poor showing this playoff round. But there are the teams that are sponsoring this inaugural season. It begins next year, so it's going to be with NBA 2K18. And essentially the premise behind that is that players that play the game competitively, they're not going to be basically endorsed, unless I'm reading this wrong, by said team. I guess you're going to have like the Boston Celtics team and Cleveland Cavaliers team. And it's kind of something similar to what Madden's doing, because I know Madden football is doing things like this. I saw an ad for Seattle Seahawks tournament, I believe, a couple months ago. So my question to you, Corey, is: do you think video gamers and these competitions should be considered sports?
Well, I think the quick answer is no. By the very definition of sport is an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another. So, and skill, I would say gaming is lacking a little bit in that. What kind of athleticism, hand-eye coordination, speed, strength do you really need for playing video games?
So you just kind of hit the nail there for me with the hand-eye coordination. That's like the most hugest part. You can't be staring at your controller. So I guess there's got to be some kind of hand-eye coordination there.
Isn't it just kind of muscle memory at that point if you play enough video games? And finger dexterity?
Not necessarily, because you got to be able to read the screen and pick out, like for a football game, you got to pick out which receiver is open, and you got to hit that button. So
but the button makes the pass. You don't have to, right?
Yeah, but you got to make the timing. So, do you? I don't know. I'm looking at something that says competition of all forms of competitive physical activity, and that sometimes entertain for as long as it's for spectators. Now, there are people that actually watch this. I'm not one of them because I like to play versus watch. I find it a little boring unless the person's entertaining. Even then, after like a half hour, I've lost interest. I know I've definitely have interest in streaming, and I'm debating about doing that with Madden 18. So who knows? They valued watchers. Cory, would you watch it on ESPN? Because they do have contracts on ESPN.
Yeah, I know, and no, I would not watch it.
Do you think it even belongs on ESPN? Because I think I might be on your side on this side.
Who do I think belongs on ESPN?
No, do you think they belong on ESPN?
Oh, no. There's plenty of other networks for gaming. Isn't there like the G4 network on cable?
No, I got this banded.
Oh, well.
But I think it should stay online. I think, if anything, it shouldn't be on ESPN or ESPN2 because that's a dying platform to begin with. TV itself. I think it should be on YouTube or Twitch is a gaming service. Some kind of platform like that. I don't think it belongs on ESPN.
I don't either. I think you're opening up, like we said, the definition of sport. What if people want to put their staring contests on ESPN? That's the same thing. Isn't it a form of physical activity where two people are competing, just staring into each other? You could put anything on ESPN if we're going to start going by that.
I mean, they do have hot dog competition.
Yeah, and I know there's a big debate on if those guys are really athletes or not, but
what, in your definition, not just the dictionary or Wikipedia or anything like that, what is your definition of a sport? Because I have a definition that doesn't resemble this as well.
My definition, it would probably actually hurt my argument because I don't know if it necessarily has to be physical. It's almost any form of competition between two individuals or two teams to I don't know, to compete for entertainment. I guess it'd be similar, but I don't know if it necessarily has to be physical.
And it's kind of strange because we say this about ESPN broadcasting and everything, but I do know there are professional stadiums where it's like a CenturyLink Field or a Carrier Dome or any type of sports stadium around here. They do exist over in Japan where this type of event is really big.
Yeah, my stepbrother, I don't know if we've ever talked about him on here, moved out to Japan, and he's a heavy gamer. I think he was even a semi-professional with Super Smash Brothers. I know he was sponsored at one point, so I guess at that point you become a professional.
Yeah.
He would probably actually know more about this, but he always tried to tell me that it is a sport, and he was trying to get me into the comp. Can't really watch it. I'm not enamored by it.
It's very hard to be enamored by it unless it's something you're actively doing. Do you? I think I already just asked you this, but do you play video games at all?
No, I'm like you made the comment earlier. They frustrate me because if I can't do something on a controller that I know I could do in real life, I'd rather just go play the sport in real life.
But you don't play like Call of Duty or anything like that?
No. I think
Mario Kart.
I played that a few years ago on the Wii.
Well, that's about all your knowledge of video games?
Yeah.
I can see your argument, but I think it is a sport. I definitely see that there are two sides. You have games like Call of Duty where you're playing 4v4. You have to have the knowledge. You have the ability to memorize it, yes, but you still have to take in every type of like movement, and I don't know. I see it as a sport. It's just not a sport for me, and I don't think it's a sport that should be on ESPN.
I just don't. I guess a lot of times with sports, I consider the people that are playing the sports athletes. And let's be honest, you don't have to be much of an athlete to play video games.
Because, all right, I'm gonna make this argument, and I just thought of this, so don't think I'm like trying to blindside you with it. Well, what about NASCAR? Because to me, a video game, you could do the same thing. There's a little more risk involved with NASCAR because you're gonna hit something, but you're driving. You're not really doing anything physical other than sweating a lot, I guess, when it's that hot day.
Well, it's always over 100 degrees in the cab, always, no matter what. I think if you saw a clip of inside the car, what they're doing, you'd realize it's not a Sunday stroll. They're sitting there like this the whole time. That's why if you see NASCAR drivers, they're normally not like out of shape guys. Most of them are in shape. You have to be able to take the heat. And you have to be able to have control of that wheel at all times. If you don't have control, like you said, it's a really big risk. You're risking your life and others. There's always that debate with NASCAR. I always do the same debate with golfers. Yes, they have to walk around a lot and swing a club, but you have people like John Daly who just won a tournament and he's pretty out of shape. So what kind of shape do you have to be in for golf?
I think it's all about also dynamics too. But with that being said, you also have things like baseball. You don't see the most ripped guys playing baseball.
Not since the steroid era, no.
But I mean, you have Babe Ruth, probably one of the most famous baseball players to ever play the game, and he would. David Wells. That reminds me. David Wells pitched a perfect game, hungover. I mean,
and one of my favorite players was Cecil Fielder for the Detroit Tigers. I think he has one stolen base on his whole career. So, but he was a great hitter.
I mean, it's definitely a topic we can debate again when it comes up for like a championship or anything. Some of these championships are kind of hard to follow, though, because I just don't follow these type of video games. They have, like, Super Street Fighter and...
I saw the FIFA what was it? I looked up that was the mid-season inaugural. The FIFA championship just happened. A guy who won it, actually, his moniker, I think, is Rocky. So, and he won 162 grand. So these tournaments, obviously... have viewers, bring in money.
I mean, just to give you some kind of like view of how many gamers or what ESPN is doing with the coverage, just look at their website. They have a whole section dedicated for it, and they have certain games that are really huge, like League of Legends, and I believe that's Counter-Strike. Correct. I mean, Dota 2, I don't even know. Dungeons and Dragons, I don't know.
Well, there's the article right there under top headlines where the FIFA championship was won by Rocky. Yeah.
So, I mean, they have this huge following, I guess. And I guess it's doing decent because ESPN keeps investing in it. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I remember hearing something about how the championship drew huge numbers for the company. So is that ESPN's going, especially their layoffs?
I don't know. That would be a Disney thing, I would think, bringing in that. But I was going to say, I know that Blizzard, I think they're the makers of WoW. They have big invitationals where you can play all their games, have lots of tournaments. I remember seeing a big special on it on Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel. There's a good 20-minute journalist clip of it, talking about how big it is, how big, I don't know what it's called for the gaming, but almost like a Comic-Con, but for gaming event, how big that is. So
E3?
Yeah, it was interesting. And he said there was thousands and thousands of people, so it is big.
All right. And I guess we agree to disagree.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a friendly disagreement here.
Yeah. Well, Steffan's not here, so it's definitely always going to be friendly. At least we don't have to worry about getting headbutts or anything.
That's true.
So with that being said, did you happen to catch the Ryan Leaf E60 special that debuted on, what was it, Sunday?
I didn't catch it, but that was more so because I follow football pretty closely. I kind of know his story. There might be some stuff on there that I don't know that they probably went more in depth with, but I have a pretty good grasp on what happened and what went wrong with Ryan Leaf.
And I didn't catch it either, but I did catch some clips off ESPN, and it sounds like he blames his way of life and the reason why he went to jail on the fact that he became the second draft pick in the NFL, and that's what took him over.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the start time. I can't find it. I think it might be on Wednesday repeat at 10 a.m. Pacific, it looks like.
I know for those who may not be familiar, he had some injuries early on in his career, and he was taking a lot of prescription pills. And he said back then anyways, the NFL teams would just give him out like candy. Yeah, here, make the pain go away. And he became addicted to them. That he blames that on leading to a lot of his mental issues and anger issues, his withdrawals, all that stuff. I think that's all in the special.
Probably. I can actually confirm something like that. I've heard from another player that didn't even make the NFL. He was in the AFL, and he said that there was a jar basically full of those type of prescription pills, and people were taking them like Tic Tacs. So it's kind of sad that's the world we're living in to begin with, because I know America has a drug problem, and prescription pills is definitely one. And I mean, I think the when you say Ryan Leaf, I think of that blow up you had with the reporter more than anything, more than his abysmal career.
Really? I was going to say, when I hear Ryan Leaf, I think of the ultimate bust.
I think of, you don't know what you're talking about. That's all I think about.
Well, it's like with Allen Iverson, all I think is practice. We're talking about practice?
I will always remember that blow up, and then you see Junior Seau like walk over to like separate him, and it's like, who's gonna mess with Junior Seau? I mean, he was a pretty.
Yeah, but speaking of, that's interesting you bring Junior Seau up, because didn't they prove that he had some CTE issues and ended up killing himself, committed suicide because of that?
Well, even before like they did the official test, they kind of knew it. Because he wrote a letter saying he wanted his brain subject to that study.
Yeah. So I mean, you had obviously the Chargers organization may have an issue with that. If you were giving out pills like candy, and you have players obviously with lots of concussion issues that are still out there playing, difficult time for football at that point. It wasn't as safe as it is today. I know people like to complain about all the rules, but in the end, it is to help them out.
Well, I think one of my biggest complaints about any of the new rules is the quarterback protection, because it seems like some refs always seems to take it to the extreme, and it's usually with certain quarterbacks.
Well, that would be what I was going to say. When you have humans as referees, you're always going to have some kind of emotional preference, almost like someone who might be friends with Tom Brady off the field might give him more calls than he would the other quarterback in a game. And he might be doing it subconsciously, but it's going to happen.
And it's kind of unfortunate because it kind of gives the game a black eye, and I don't know. I don't appreciate it. I want the game to live on and keep going.
I heard they're making strides on a helmet, so maybe that will help.
You know, I once was listening to Neil Tyson deGrasse's podcast, and he had some kind of physics person on. The guy was saying that the football helmet was designed all wrong to begin with because of the way that it's the hard shell and then the soft inside to be the other way, so it absorbs yet still protects. So
that makes sense.
Maybe that's the change that might be coming. Maybe they'll, because I can only imagine how comfortable a hard outer shell would be just to be with no padding on the inside. So maybe it'll be some kind of like system like that. Because I noticed that during some off-season training camps, I remember going to like a Syracuse football game, and they had like pads around the helmet itself. So maybe. I mean, it doesn't look the greatest, but who cares if it makes the players better protected and puts out a better product.
Right.
So, since neither of us really watched that special, watch it on Wednesday. And thanks to Steffan for making us have to talk about it as well. You know, even when he's not here, he's still annoying. Which leads me to his awesome super secret special edition of his top 5. Seeing how he couldn't make the show, he gladly recorded it before, like a couple hours ago. So I'm surprised. I'm wondering, because there is a second part, and I'll play it at the end. I keep teasing it to keep the viewers watching, even though they're not watching right now. But got to keep those view numbers up, people. You know, I'm sorry. And so Steffan covers interesting topic, and goes right after Cory, actually, at the very beginning. Well, not necessarily right after, but you'll see. So here it is, without further ado.
And here we have Steffan's totally biased, totally random, totally secretive top 5. This week's top 5 is going to be the top 5 QB bus in honor of the Ryan Leaf special that was aired on ESPN this past weekend. I don't know if anybody else watched that, but pretty interesting. So number 5, the top 5 QB bus. I got Achilles Smith for the Bengals. Drafted number 3 overall. Cory should like that one.
Wow.
Sure he's a big fan of him.
Starting with the daggers already.
So he was drafted number 3 overall in the draft, and only played 22 games. 5 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, so pretty solid career for him. Quarterbacks that the Bengals missed out on for that draft. I mean, they didn't have a chance at him, but I mean, maybe if they had traded up, they could have got McNabb at number 2, and Dante Culpepper also was in that draft at number 11, which he was decent. So I mean, it was better than Achilles Smith, that's for sure. Number 4, we've got Tim Couch, who was also in that same draft. He went number 1 overall. He had a little bit better of a career.
I mean, does he really count as a bust just because he played with the Browns? I think I give him a pass.
He's still, I mean, he only played 62 games. He didn't last long. I mean, threw more interceptions than touchdowns.
Did he play with any other team? You know?
That I'm not sure of. He might have.
I'll look that up.
All right. He threw 64 touchdowns, 67 interceptions. Like I said, they could have had McNabb at number 2 or Culpepper at number 11. I think they both had a better career. A lot of times, though, I feel like a lot of these quarterbacks, if they had just gotten into a better system, could have, like, I feel like you get drafted by the Browns, you're pretty much destined for a terrible career.
All right, so he, I think, was on the practice or off-season squad for the Green Bay Packers in 2004. Took 3 years off or just couldn't get signed, and then was on the Jacksonville Jaguars squad of 2007. So, I mean, there was only like one real winner in there, I guess.
So he never played really after the Browns.
I mean, he had a 75.1 passer rating, though.
I don't know.
64 to 7 was his TD to interception
right
ratio. But how much is that on him, though, too? If you don't have anyone to throw to.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that if he landed in a better system, but obviously no other team wanted to take a chance on him, so he didn't even get a chance to another system.
He's not a Kentucky, so I mean
that's like this next quarterback I got coming up. He just landed in a bad system.
Johnny Manziel.
No, I didn't even put him in here. I went with I
really like this top 5 because
these are all high draft picks, though. I mean, when you draft somebody this high, you expect them to be. They should be a franchise quarterback. They should last for a while. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong.
All right then.
Debate with you.
Number 3. We got David Carr, who I really do think he probably ended up in a bad system because they couldn't keep him off his back. I think he got sacked
Yeah, didn't he get injured more than anything?
Yeah, he was injured a lot. He got sacked I think I read 267 times or something like that, and he only played in 94 games. He had a touchdown interception ratio of 65 to 71. A couple quarterbacks in that draft that came after him. David Garrard at number 108. He started for Jacksonville for a few years there, and he was decent. And Josh McCown at number 81, who is still hanging around the league. He's nothing great, but I feel like he might have been a better option. David Carr I feel like, did he have Andre Johnson back then? Or was that after?
I think it was after.
Was it after David Carr?
Or it was like his first year that he was able to, his Andre Johnson's first year, and it probably was David Carr's last.
Yeah. I think David Carr he didn't benefit much from the offensive line for the Houston Texans. They did not have a great offensive line. So he unfortunately did not pan out as well as everybody thought he would.
Well, when did what's-his-face get drafted as the defensive lineman? Because I don't think that team was good at all. When he was there, he didn't have any support.
I feel like was David Carr their first quarterback that Houston got when it came in as the expansion? Might have been.
37 now.
I mean, that could.
2002. I don't know when Houston came around, but he looking at the stats. I'm apparently the stat checker now. Houston drafted Andre Johnson in 2003, so he had a couple years. He had 3 years with him. So
well, there's no reason that he shouldn't have been tearing it up. The stud receiver. I mean, if he could have stayed upright a little more, probably would have helped.
I mean, so here's some. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Never mind. I was looking at Andre Johnson. I'm like, what? I don't remember David Carr being like an all-star Pro Bowler.
No, he was never a Pro Bowler.
Hey, technically speaking, he is a Super Bowl champion. However,
Was on the bench for who?
Super Bowl 46. So the Giants.
Oh,
He's got his number retired. He's got a 74.9 passer rating and 9 rushing touchdowns. I don't know.
not good enough for a number 1 overall pick.
I think that's.
It's not.
I hope Corey has something to say about that. Corey, do you?
Good. We don't want to hear it anyways. Thanks, Corey. Number 2, I've got probably a pretty big fan favorite here, Jamarcus Russell, drafted number 1 overall as well. I only played 3 seasons with the Raiders. Touchdown to interception ratio of 18-23. Not solid. He also, after he retired, I think it was after he retired. I don't think it was when he was in the NFL. Or maybe it was when he was in the NFL. He got caught with the old codeine and
Bogus sugar.
yeah, he was in a little bit of drugs. Some notable misses that the Raiders could have drafted. Calvin Johnson was number 2 overall selection. Adrian Peterson, number 7. And Marshawn Lynch at number 12.
Yeah, but Marshawn didn't turn it on until he went to Seattle. Really, I mean,
He was decent with Buffalo.
yeah,
You're right. He didn't turn it on to where, I mean, now like people like want him, but he wasn't bad in Buffalo, and he might have also just been in a bad system at Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo's.
and I don't see Oakland being any better with Calvin Johnson, because
No, because they still wouldn't have had a quarterback. You're right. No, and I mean they had Randy Moss there for a while.
the only one I could see is Adrian Peterson helping them out.
Yeah, I agree. Adrian Peterson probably would have been a solid pickup for him. But I'm just saying, I mean, based on these careers, maybe they could have drafted a quarterback the following year or something.
Maybe.
Or done something different. I don't know. He's a pretty big bust in my eyes. And then I'm gonna go with Ryan Leaf as the number 1 bust. Compared to what he only played in 25 games. Luckily, the Colts made the wise choice of selecting Peyton Manning number 1 and left the Chargers with Ryan Leaf for number 2.
Woo.
Imagine what could have been for the Chargers if they had gotten Peyton Manning instead.
Yeah.
We've rewritten history.
There's so much to be said about Ryan Leaf, but I mean, living out here in Seattle, I get to talk to a bunch of Washington State University fans, and I kind of threw a little jab at them, like, who's even from Washington State? Can you name another NFL player other than like Ryan Leaf? He threw someone out, and I'm like, who? Like,
but nobody good apparently. He only played in 25 games. Touchdown interception ratio 14-36. But he was not solid at all. Some other notable draft picks for that year. Fred Taylor had a decent career, number 9 for Jacksonville. Had Randy Moss at number 21. Brian Greasy, number 91 pick. I think he had a better career than Ryan Leaf. You had Hines Ward at number 92. And then Matt Hasselbeck at number 187, which he had a decent career there in Seattle.
still in the NFL?
Is he still?
I don't know.
No way. He's not still. I could have. Is it? I know his brother was like a commentator there for a while. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Matt Hasselbeck's got to be retired by this point. Probably not far out of.
He's currently an analyst on ESPN.
Okay.
NFL Countdown. And if this thing ever loads, I'll be able to tell you when he retired. Google Chrome. There we are. He retired in 2015, so recently.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I thought he just recently retired, so he had a solid career, I think.
3 Pro Bowls.
Won a Super Bowl, right?
No.
Made it to the Super Bowl.
Sure.
That was the year they had Sean Alexander.
Oh, yeah. He was on the Seahawks for 2001 to 2010. And then went to the Titans for 2 seasons, and the Colts is where he ended up retiring.
Oh, that's right.
Made 3 Pro Bowls and the Seattle Seahawks 35th anniversary team.
Oh, nice.
I mean, he threw 212 touchdown passes and 153 interceptions.
Pretty efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Better than 14 to 36. Yeah, that's what I got. That's what I got for my top 5 QB bus. I don't know what you guys think about it. You guys can debate it all you want.
I think it sucks.
Well, you always think they suck, so nothing new there.
All right, I'm going to let Cory chime in first. And then we'll see what happens from there.
All right.
I can't hear you, Kevin, yet.
All right. So
okay, I can hear you.
There we go. I forgot I muted myself so I could do other things in the background, like drink beer and open it. By the way, this is what I'm drinking. So, like I said in the video, what do you think?
I actually probably would have had Akili Smith higher.
I was gonna say I think he may have been a little gracious because of you, but I kind of played it as the other way because how many seasons did Akili even play?
I think maybe 2 or 3. I remember I was all about him because I really like Oregon. I'm pretty sure he came out of there. Actually, I'm positive he was the quarterback out of there. But the seasons, I think only 2 or 3. I always thought he was going to be a big deal. I was real excited about the pick when it happened. It just didn't pan out. He had a rough career. And I think he was much worse than Tim Couch.
I mean, he's 41 now, so he would easily be retired. He played with Cincinnati for 3 years.
Yep, okay.
Made the practice squad for Green Bay and Tampa. And then ended up going to Frankfurt when NFL Europe was around, and then played a season with the Calgary Stampeders. But, I mean, he's got a 52.8 QB rating, which is pretty abysmal compared to, I remember looking at some of the other people he'd thrown out, like Tim Couch, I think had a 72. Yeah. So
I understand having Tim Couch on there. The one I probably would have taken off is David Carr. I would probably have RG3 on there.
RG3, even though he's still in the league? I mean, he's more injury prone than like talent.
But besides his rookie season, I think he's pretty much been nothing.
But he at least did something. compared to someone like Johnny Manziel. I mean,
I thought that was a good mention. That to me is a bust. Marcus Russell, Ryan Leaf, Johnny Manziel, Akili Smith, and for me, RG3.
I
You could throw Tim Couch, whoever, some of the other ones on there.
I mean,
Brady Quinn was drafted in the top 20, I believe, or he busted.
You give me 5 Cleveland Brown quarterbacks, and I could tell you they're all busts. Like,
yeah,
I feel like it's more like I said in the video. I don't consider Cleveland Browns quarterback a failure and an all-time bust just because they're on the Cleveland Browns. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's that person that actually ended the streak, but they would tape up and cross out like whoever the quarterback was and put the next quarterback on the back of their jersey. And I think they ended up retiring it, and because it was getting so long. Like, it's pretty sad for Cleveland. I feel bad for them.
The only quarterback I remember having some success was Jason Campbell.
Yeah, and then I remember one year they were even considering putting in Kevin Johnson, who was a draftee as a wide receiver. He had played quarterback in high school and then was moved to wide receiver at Syracuse because of a little quarterback called Donovan McNabb. I mean, so that's how desperate they usually are for quarterbacks, is sometimes they get to the point where they need to pull in people that haven't played since high school.
I think that's why everyone was impressed with this year's draft, that they didn't jump on one right away, knowing that next year is supposed to be a great quarterback class, and Cleveland will probably be at the bottom again. So they'll have a better shot at something actually worthwhile next year.
You know, I'm getting the tingles just even thinking about the start of college football season, so I can't wait to begin to start talking about it again. It's been so long. We haven't even really been able to since the first podcast.
Yeah, we haven't.
So what, I don't know, is there a bust that just like sticks in your head other than Ryan Leaf, though? That's the unfortunate thing.
The number 2, Jamarcus Russell, was such a bust. He couldn't keep his weight down. He couldn't get off the drugs. And there was more hype for him than there was Ryan Leaf. So you could almost make an argument he was number 1. Being able to throw the ball 70 yards while on his knees, having decent 40 time. He was supposed to be this freak athlete, and just, he was nothing. He was absolutely nothing.
I mean, do you think that might just have something to do with the personnel?
It could be the personnel. I think a lot of it is the NFL scouts love, or the GMs, whoever, I guess it's the general managers, their obsession with the combine instead of a brain and the knowledge of the game. A lot of the times they'll overlook some guys that are better prepared, like say a Russell Wilson. Didn't measure out great at the combine, but he was highly intelligent, knew how to play. Seattle took a shot on him, and it's been what I would call successful. You won a Super Bowl, you got to another one. Sometimes taking the superstar athlete, I don't think is all it's cracked up to be.
I mean, I guess combine is a little too intuitive, I guess, to a point, but you've got players like Peyton Manning, all these number 1 players, and I think it's more or less the system more than the players itself, and the coaching staff and the general managers drafting someone that doesn't fit their style. I think we're very big into styles here on this podcast, and I think that's one thing that a lot of teams tend to overlook. And the fact that, like, Jamarcus Russell was a quarterback that tended to scramble, if I remember correctly, in college, and then just wasn't that type of quarterback or system for that quarterback.
Yeah, he proved to be mobile when he was on LSU, and then like I said about his weight gain, he became immobile when he was in the NFL.
I mean, I think and it's very hard to be a mobile quarterback in the NFL to begin with, because I think the only quarterback to succeed is Cam Newton. Even then, he gets hurt.
Cam Newton and Steve Young. And Steve Young had all those concussions, and that ended his career. So how much was it worth it? And then Cam Newton is just a freak. He's the LeBron James of football. There's no athlete like him in football.
But he's still injury prone, too.
Yeah, he's just having shoulder surgery in the offseason. Now I think he'll be a big question mark going into the NFL season and going into a lot of people's fantasy drafts.
Ooh, that's another topic. More to come on that in the future podcasts. Stay tuned. So
what about you? I brought up Jamarcus Russell. Is there anyone you want to talk about?
I wrote him down as he was saying it, so forget. I think you pretty much hit the nail that I wanted to talk about, was the Keely Smith. I thought he was a bigger bust than number 5. I think he should have been higher on that. I even would consider him the number 1 bust over Ryan Leaf because of the fact that he only lasted 3 years.
Yeah.
Barely completed any touchdowns. I mean, 5 touchdowns in 3 seasons. I mean, was he a backup at some point? When did he get benched?
I think his 3rd season, he ended up taking a back seat. I don't recall who he took a back seat to. Part of me wants to say it was John Kitna, who actually ended up having some success. So I don't know. He was poor. He just didn't. The Bengals weren't even that bad. There was some talent on that team.
I don't know. I mean, it's unfortunate for your team. I'm just glad none of my team's players made it, because I'm sure there's a couple you could throw out. I'm not even going to suggest them for him. So,
well, we've come a far way from Achilles Smith to now we have quarterback controversy because we have 2 good ones. So
we'll get to talking about that in August. All right, I'm gonna kind of derail us from our show notes, and because I just noticed this, and I remember reading it earlier this morning, and I wanted to mention this to you since you're our boxing analyst, you're our boxing expert. Did you see the Andre Durrell uncle punch?
Yes, I actually watched those fights. I was in Philly this weekend, and when I got home, I watched all those Showtime fights. And I remember seeing a highlight of the uncle sucker punching the other fighter after, I can't pronounce that guy's name, but after he threw an illegal punch after the bell against Andre Durrell. And I don't know, Andre Durrell looked like he could continue to fight, but the ref was very quick to disqualify him. There's some controversy with the speed of which the fight was called off, but
I don't know. I kind of could. So the guy that got punched, he wasn't disqualified. It was the corner, basically.
The fighter who punched Andre Durrell was disqualified immediately after he landed a punch after the bell that seemed to knock Andre Durrell unconscious for at least a few seconds. So right away when that happened, he was disqualified. Because Andre Durrell has a history, he was hit illegally before in a fight against Arthur Abraham, in which that fighter was disqualified. I think Andre Durrell's trainer reacted the way he did because Andre Durrell has been victim of this before. And I think he's getting sick of people taking cheap shots at his fighter. So he went over to the corner and sucker punched the guy. And now he's on the run, I hear, because I hear the guy wants to press charges and they can't find him.
So I just like this picture that I won't even play the video. I just like the picture they have. Just seeing all the sweat coming off and whatnot. Like, how do you let that even happen as a pro boxer? Like, I get that you're not expecting it, but you got to have some kind of reaction. It doesn't even look like you reacted to it. Like, you just absorbed the whole punch.
He absorbed it, and you didn't even go down. Nothing. He just took it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the uncle ended up taking most of the damage with his hand because it doesn't look like he punched properly either.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
So, I mean, how was the fights this weekend? I know you posted that it's going to be like the best month for boxing. How was this
next weekend, this coming Saturday is amazing. But this past weekend, you had Terrence Crawford, who a lot of people think is a top 5 boxer, pound for pound, defend his 140-pound belt against an Olympic gold medalist who has one loss, but even that loss was kind of an iffy decision. A lot of people consider him undefeated. And Terrence Crawford beat him so bad, the guy's corner threw in the towel after the 7th round. So that was big for Terrence. He's starting to look more and more Floyd Mayweather-esque. No one seems to be able to match wits with him. And unlike Floyd, he's willing to let his hands go. He's much more aggressive. So he's fun to watch. The other big name was Gary Russell Jr. He fights at 122 or 126 pounds. He defended his belt successfully in an entertaining fight against Oscar Escandon. I think that was a TKO in the 10th. Those were the two big names. You had Floyd Mayweather's fighter, Gervonta Davis, go over to England and get a win in 3. That was the only highlight about that was Floyd Mayweather in the press conference telling the guy's brothers to shut their mouth, and he'd beat up all 3 of them in one night.
One night.
Yeah. So that's the quick wrap up for boxing. But this coming weekend is Kell Brook versus Earl Spence. Those are 2 of the top 5 welterweights in the world fighting. In boxing, you don't get a lot of those kinds of matchups because of politics. So that is a huge fight. That should be entertaining. I don't even know who to pick. I couldn't do a quick recap on our next podcast of what happened.
All right. I'm fine with that. I mean, I'd rather have a recap than a preview because, I mean, it's kind of hard to preview certain, especially when I don't list it in the show notes and you just kind of are put on the spot. I also, apparently it's a bad day for fighting on Facebook because this is how I'm getting all these like stories. But here's another story for you. Chris Cyborg Justino is cited for battery after an altercation with another MMA fighter over social media posts.
I heard that. Wasn't that at some kind of UFC conference too?
So every year, UFC fighters are required to attend this UFC meeting in Las Vegas, and it was just this past weekend that they had it. And yes, that's how it happened. Apparently, I also ended up listening to an interview of Cyborg this past week on the Fighter and the Kid podcast. Actually, no, excuse me, not the Fighter and the Kid, the Big Brown Breakdown. And I don't know, some people were moved by the story, including the person that did the interview. I'm still kind of like, this is more of a he said, she said type thing. And she's claiming the UFC is just pretty much using her. And I don't know. There's a point that I don't buy it.
Isn't that what, not to cut you off, but isn't that what the Diaz brothers are claiming too?
Yeah, and I get it. I know UFC is a business and they're trying to make money, and I get that they're going to use their fighters to make that money. It's the same way in boxing. The biggest fighters get the biggest money, and the smaller boxers don't get a lot either as well. And it's unfortunate. However, it's hard to accept the fact that you accepted the UFC contract knowing at that point you were going to try and go after the 135 belt. All right. So physically you can't do it. Steroids or no steroids being the case, you're not built to make 135. and then they create a division, and you have 2 weeks, or not 2 weeks, but you have 2 months to make that weight. Most wrestlers I know hate weight cutting, but they know it's part of the game. And the fact that you can't even get down to 145, which is 10 pounds heavier, which she supposedly is walking around at 180. I mean, there is some kind of like logic to this, and you need to be able to accept that more than blame the UFC for like pressuring you into losing 40 pounds. Maybe you shouldn't be walking around. And another excuse that was thrown out was they were saying it was her off season. I'm sorry, I've never heard of a fighter having an off season. You only have a certain time limit before you are done with your career, because time does catch up, and it does catch up quickly. And if you have an off season, you're only eating into that time. I don't know if you heard any of that part of the story.
No, I didn't. That's interesting.
That it was like an off season, and it wasn't even her saying this. It was her boyfriend, and her boyfriend was like, pro sports have off seasons and such, but they're still training. They're still putting in their time. So you can't sit there and tell me that just because it was her off season, quote unquote, that it's the reason why she couldn't make the 145 and fight for the first 145 belt. I don't know. I got more aggravated than anything and started, I always feel like she's on steroids. I mean, look, if you look at her, it's kind of hard not to say. And I know she was calling out Joe Rogan because he put out a podcast with Tony Hinchcliffe, his friend. And granted, Joe Rogan does UFC commentary, but she was making remarks about how Joe, or no, it wasn't even Joe. It was Tony Hinchcliffe making a comment of how maybe they should just cut off her penis to make weight. Mm-hmm. And I think that was more in reference to how everyone suspects that she was on steroids. And yeah, she got cleared. Yeah, okay, it was kind of legitimate, but if you look at yourself, like, come on, like you can't sit there. There's very few women that look like that aren't on steroids. And the fact that she was saying that, a comedian isn't allowed to put that on his podcast and his other information, I didn't really take it as Joe Rogan, the UFC commentator. I took it as Joe Rogan and his buddy. His buddy is the one that made the comment, not Joe Rogan. I mean, I don't know. I just had more of an issue with her than anything. I didn't feel any more like on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So, I didn't mean to go on that rant. Holy cow! just that one interview. Just like I apparently it's been stirring up in my head, and I had put it on the back shelf for just this moment. So I guess that's our fighting section. Steffan, you have anything to say? No. Okay. This is when I need a soundboard so I can hit the hello. All right. So let's move on to the NHL playoffs that have been happening. Actually, I should say we're getting to the nitty gritty. We're winding down to the conference finals. We'll be able to make our Stanley Cup picks finally. I know they tend to end a little bit quicker than the NBA playoffs.
And hello, everybody. We have a Sidney Crosby sighting. He's finally playing well.
Hello. And also, I picked Nashville in 6, by the way. Did you know that?
I did not.
And look what we're looking at today. Ducks at Predators starts in a little bit, in less than an hour. Series lead goes to Nashville 3-2. So I think someone picked Anaheim. I can't remember who.
Me.
Oh, you picked Anaheim in 6, so that didn't come true. And then I think I'm looking at it now. Steffan also picked Nashville in 6, so begrudgingly, I might have to be the same. I think we all picked Pittsburgh in 6 too, as well. So we have that going for us, I guess, right, Corey?
Yeah, I guess. My hockey predictions have been way off.
Steffan's theory seems to be paying off. I'm just gonna let him go on his rant before, and then go with him. Right? Is that what we're gonna do?
That's what I'm gonna do. I'm hopping on that bandwagon.
So Nashville and the Ducks have been in 2 overtime games. It's been a nice series to watch. I've been watching a little bit of it. I know they had one of their key players get injured, and I think he's out for the rest of the playoffs as well. So kind of like the Boston situation. Maybe they'll play a little better. I don't know. I don't know that much about the team. I'm not gonna lie. And we'll talk more about the Stanley Cup. I think they'll have already played game 1, unlike the NBA Finals, who will still not probably know who's in the NBA Finals because of how long that stupid series takes. I must say, at least it's every other day.
Yeah, and it starts June 1st. We're quickly approaching.
Oh, they moved it up then. Because I remember it usually lasting around until my birthday, which is 2 weeks into June. So, all right. So then the Pittsburgh Penguins, as I mentioned, also have a 3-2 lead. They play tomorrow at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. They're at the Ottawa Senators. And only game 1 went into overtime with Ottawa becoming victorious. And then the Penguins kind of have taken over in the last 2 games. So, with that being said, we feeling confident about our picks? I know you probably can't feel too confident with Anaheim. I'm feeling confident with my picks.
Yeah, I'm not feeling that confident with Anaheim, but yeah, with Pittsburgh, I was happy to see that Sidney Crosby has scored 2 goals in the last 2 games. So he's starting to play well. So there was all this talk about maybe he's injured. What's wrong with him? Obviously, nothing's wrong with him. He's back on track. So,
and I think that's a good news for NHL in general.
Yes, he's their star. He's the face of the NHL.
I mean, could you name another player in the NHL? I can't.
Well, besides Alexander Ovechkin, not too many.
Yeah. Or Jaromir Jagr, who's going into like 27th season. I think he's been in the league as long as I've been alive, I think, is what I looked up. Or 1 year before or something, or after. Something ridiculous. All right. So with that being said, did you have any comments about the NASCAR All-Star race this past weekend?
Just that Kyle Busch eked out a win. It was a really close race. It was actually entertaining. And Kyle Larson came in second, and Jimmy Johnson rounded out third. You had Dale Earnhardt Jr. coming 18th, so his horrible season continues. I don't know if his mind's already on retirement or what, but we'll see what happens in Charlotte. I picked Jimmy Johnson to win the race, and he was racing well there, so the All-Star race is there, so hopefully it continues for him. I can't remember who you guys picked, but
that's a good question. I think Steffan went with Jimmy Johnson. Let me look it up here on the fly. Hold music.
Steffan probably already picked Jimmy because he only picked drivers that he knows so far.
All right, so he picked Elliott.
Okay.
That's right. I remember talking about how I picked him and he got me 42, and then you picked him at Talladega and he only got you 7.
So. Yeah.
You picked Johnson. That's what.
Yep.
And I picked Stenhouse, who I called Stackhouse on the podcast.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. So, without further ado, I think it's time to play a clip of a clip of a clip. How's that work? There's gonna be. It's like it goes deep. We're gonna watch a clip from episode 18. Steffan's gonna make some comments about Cory and his abilities to pick NBA playoff series or something. I don't know. So without further ado, let me pull that up actually first. Without further ado, here is the clip.
That's Cleveland. I'm gonna be the oddball out though. I'm gonna say
Go
do it for a sister.
your heart.
do I have to pick who I have to pick
Who do you think? I'm holding
come out
on to your
out
head.
of these three teams, who will come out of the East is what you're asking me.
Yes.
Okay.
And how many games it's going to take them?
And how many games is gonna take them? All right, I will take Boston in 6.
Corey?
Get your brooms out, Cleveland and 4.
Stop. There's no way they're
Cleveland's not
sweep.
going to lose one game heading into the finals.
I will bet you anything.
Not one game.
I will bet you anything.
You don't have anything I want.
Jeez.
Low blows.
Man. Nothing. I just bought a 6-pack of beer. You can have that at least.
All right, we'll bet a 6-pack of beer.
All right.
In 2 weeks when the series is over. All right. So there's your video evidence. Steffan, have you gotten your 6-pack of beer?
I have not. I have not gotten my 6-pack of beer. I was expecting it outside my door this morning. Unfortunately, somebody is not very quick on the paying up as I thought they were going to be. I don't know. I hate to say it, but I told you so.
Now, at first, I thought I remembered the clip saying that you said Boston in 6, and I thought that was the initial bet, like who was going to be right. But then after replaying that video again and hearing him bet the 6-pack on Cleveland sweeping, I don't know. What's the most expensive 6-pack out there right now? Because I think you should ask for it.
I should go for the most expensive one.
Yeah.
Man. Oh, I don't even know. There's got to be some good ones out there. Well, me and him will have to take a trip to Wegmans, I think, and do some shopping.
Hold each other's hands.
Hold each other's hands. Do a little bro date. A little bro date for some beer.
Bro date for some beer. All right, Steffan. Thanks for joining me again.
No problem.
Unfortunately, Corey couldn't be here for the recording of this little clip session.
Probably better that way. I can't wait to listen to his reactions later.
Are you gonna sign up for YouTube Red, download it so you can listen to it on the flight out here?
Possibly. We'll see.
All right, so next week you get to sit in front of the Buccaneers blanket.
Be a good show.
Excited? I'm excited.
Maybe I'll bring a different blanket to replace that one.
No, it stays. Yo. I'm just excited for the beer mile.
That's all I'm excited for. Can't wait to finish it.
Cory and Kevin, back to you.
See ya.
All right. So,
I like the segue.
Yeah, you like that? It's like I planned it or something. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for such a great interview of Steffan. Cory, are you gonna be going on a bro date with Steffan tonight or tomorrow?
Apparently.
So my recommendations is to stay away from the Ballast Point. They usually are about like $13 a 6-pack. You're gonna want to try and find a local brewery,
Like Bud Light.
Yeah, I mean, you should try and convince Steffan. Be like, don't you want quantity over quality? Like, come on, you can get the same amount of beer, or more beer for the same amount of money. Come on. I want to see pictures of you guys picking the beer out. I want all the details. I'm
gonna let them know the wallet is wide open. Pick what you want.
it open. Oh, big spender.
Well, just in case I do actually beat him at something as far as picking games, I want it, whatever I want.
This might turn into a good series. With that being said, I haven't passed this idea upon Steffan, and I think I might as well just tell you publicly before I even ask you. I think we should do like a tournament, a basketball tournament, like a one-on-one. Seeing how Steffan's coming out here, if he loses, he faces you, and then whoever wins that one will get to face me. If I lose, then he plays you, and then loser faces each other, and then we know who is the best at basketball.
Okay. That's fine.
And then a six-pack will be on the line.
And do what on the line?
Well, put a six-pack, another six-pack. Why not?
All right. Last time I played him, he beat me kicking his ass in tennis, so we'll see how the rematch goes.
So, Steffan, let us know if challenge is accepted. I feel like he's going to accept it because he accepted that combine pretty quickly too. So, all right, we are out of subjects to talk about, I think. Do you have anything in particular that wasn't on the sheet?
No. We actually, the only mention I was going to make at the end of the podcast was for people to tune in to Showtime to watch the Kell Brook versus Earl Spence fight. It should be a good one.
And I also don't have much to mention.
Quickly, not to cut you off, but we did not mention, probably because it's an ongoing saga, that McGregor's side is all cleared up and signed on to fight Floyd. We're just waiting on Mayweather to do his part.
I think we didn't mention it because we've mentioned it like 15,
so much. Yeah.
19 podcasts that we've done. So, I mean, I thought about adding it, but I did not. And I guess it's fair to say, do you think it's actually going to be signed by Mayweather? I saw McGregor post something to sign the papers or shut your mouth.
Yeah, I do, because Mayweather in an interview just said if he comes back, it'll 90% chance it's McGregor. I think him and his advisor, Al Heyman, are probably just figuring out the numbers as far as how much there is available for Floyd Mayweather to make. He said he will not come back for anything less than 9 figures, which I know sounds absolutely ridiculous to a lot of people, but there's that kind of money available. So that's $100 million for those people.
Thanks. I was trying to count. I'm sure the viewers couldn't see me, but I was. Thanks for clarifying that for me, Cory.
So we'll see.
So from what I've heard, McGregor's going to probably get $75 million.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed adamant that that's what he was going to get. I don't know if that's really what he'll get after his negotiations with the UFC, if he'll have that much coming to him. But
I think so. Here's my theory, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, if he makes this much, he's going to demand more. And I don't see it that way. I think he's going to make this and then just ride off into the sunset. I don't see him stepping into the octagon ever again.
I don't either. I think if he makes that kind of money and the fight happens, I think he's going to ride off and enjoy fatherhood. You might see a Mayweather-like return, like in 4 or 5 years, McGregor saying, okay, I'm coming back. I'll fight whoever the best fighter is, and I'll beat him. But other than that,
like I just he hasn't defended a belt, as our special guest a couple episodes ago pointed out. So like, I don't see him defending any belts. I don't see, and I guess, I don't know. Do you want to briefly, do you think McGregor's got a shot?
No, I don't.
I can't wait to talk about this fight because I do.
I know. I will say something that I find very interesting, though. A lot of people are wondering how in the hell is there $75 million available and $100 million available to to Floyd and McGregor. And everyone says, okay, boxing is dead, right? And who watches boxing? But I heard a good analysis of why people do watch boxing by Max Kellerman, and I'll mention it real quickly on this podcast. So say you're walking into a Four Corners where the streets meet at the Four Corners, and at one corner you had a couple guys playing basketball, one corner a guy just putting in golf balls, another corner two people playing some tennis, and another corner a fight breaks out. Where are all the people going? They're going to the corner where the fight's breaking out. So deep down inside, you and I and everyone else, boxing really is their favorite sport, whether they know it or not. The reason it becomes complicated and everyone's going to watch the McGregor-Floyd fight is because now let's say the same scenario. What if it was Tiger Woods golfing? What if it was Michael Jordan playing basketball? What if it was the Williams sisters playing tennis? And it was just you and me fighting on the corner. No one would care about us. They'd be watching the other three. Because in order for boxing or any great fighting combat sport to be successful, you need characters and people and two fighters that people want to watch. And that is McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. They have big personalities. People are excited. That's why the fight will be successful. For those people who are wondering why there's that much money available, that was a great explanation by Max Kellerman that I just stole. But that is why people will watch.
Not to mention, they're probably going to be charging like $120 for a pay-per-view buy.
Floyd Mayweather versus Pacquiao, yes, was $100. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is what it is.
I mean, UFC's run at about 60, so $40 more. Plus, you're getting fans like me who don't typically watch boxing, that usually just buy the MMA pay-per-views. The one thing I don't agree with is Mayweather's statement about him being the A side versus the B side. I think at this point in time, it's McGregor that's the name that's going to bring people because it's something odd. You know, people have seen Mayweather because didn't Mayweather have another fight after the Pacquiao fight and it wasn't as big of a draw?
Yeah, but I mean, part of that could be because of the disappointment of the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. I mean, that wasn't very exciting. The only counter argument I'd say to that is for the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight, Floyd, who likes to show off his money, took a picture of his check that he received, and his check was $300 million. So he is the A side, whether people want to believe it or not, because McGregor's biggest check was somewhere around $10 million.
I don't think it's got anything to do with checks, though. I think it's got more to do with the name and the fact that he keeps making more and more per fight. I don't know. I just see the youth more than anything. Yeah, okay, he once was a big name. So was Muhammad Ali. Yeah, I mean,
if you ask any person about boxing right now, though, Floyd Mayweather is probably the first name they know. So I would say he's still probably the biggest name in boxing.
So more to come, and definitely going to try and bring in both Bens, even if it's a video play like we had with Steffan today. Because
I'm sure it'll be me versus you four, because I think Steffan believes McGregor has a chance too.
So my theory behind this is pretty popular among some MMA people, and I don't even think it's going to be 4 versus 1, Corey. So don't even worry about that because I think Steffan and I are in the minority because it's a different fight. If Mayweather is in the MMA, everyone's going to be picking McGregor because no one knows Mayweather. The only reason that I really have like the slightest like hunch that McGregor is going to win is just because the fact that he used to do amateur boxing and that he's known for his power. And on the off chance that he catches Mayweather with this random punch, it knocks him out. Otherwise, it's going all 12 rounds or however long it is, and it's going to go to Mayweather by decision. I don't see Mayweather's not known for his knockout power, so
He's not, but let's say, okay, McGregor's never really never trained on just boxing, ever, right? Except maybe little amateur stuff you said.
Mm-hmm.
And most boxing trainers say it takes 6 years to make a fighter ready for a 12-round fight. 6 years. McGregor hasn't focused that hard on boxing. So to assume that he all of a sudden can walk in with no real training and take on a 12-rounder, and not just against any fighter either. It's not like if he was fighting an average Joe, I think a lot of people would pick McGregor. He's going in and fighting the best fighter on the planet that we know, best boxer on the planet. And he thinks he's going to be competitive.
How old is Mayweather going to be?
If it happens this year, he'll be 40. If it happens next year, depending on time, I think Mayweather was born in the early half of the year. He will be 41.
Honestly, I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessarily going to be like, oh, McGregor goes 12 rounds and it's close. If it goes 12 rounds, it's not going to be close. That much I can tell you. I know Conor will last because just look at the punishment he took from Nate Diaz in both fights. He probably went, what? He won by decision in the second fight, so there's 25 25 minutes, and then he got choked out in the third or fourth round, so there's another 15. I mean, I think it's a little more grueling in the UFC just because you got to be aware of like body weight, and I guess we'll save this for another.
Yeah, I could keep talking about it because I have another argument for that, but we'll cut it off. We'll talk about it when it gets closer to being done.
Official. I'd rather have this conversation when it's official, and I have a little more time to prepare than just on the spur of the moment. One thing I wanted to mention before we sign off. Apparently, the Galaxy didn't play this weekend. Seattle finally got a win in MLS. Portland, however, lost 4-1. So suck on it, Steffan. If you're watching this on an airplane, you better be shaking your head right now. All right. Sorry. Galaxy did play, and they won 2-1. So you got that over.
They've actually started to come on the last few weeks.
As the Timbers have gone ice cold. Timbers have fallen to 5th. So they're struggling to hang on to that 5th playoff spot. And Seattle Sounders are right behind Galaxy 7-8. So it's going to get interesting towards the latter half of the season. So can't wait to see that. I think that will about do it. Do you have anything you want to say to Steffan on his airplane ride?
Safe travels.
Safe travels. Early prediction of who wins the beer mile. Do you think I or Steffan will, with no knowledge of my workout?
Right, I have no knowledge of your workout. The only knowledge I have is you admittingly struggling to chug a beer. So that could put you might be playing catch up. Even if you're faster than him each lap, you will have to play a little catch up. So I don't know how it will go. I'm going to go with Kevin because Steffan is my least favorite athlete of all time.
You heard it here first. I got someone on my side. I will put it out there, and I'm going to end the show on this. Steffan, if you are listening, and I'm going to find out because if I will ask you the question before we get the race underway because I thought of a bet, and I think it's only fair that loser has to chug another beer. What do you think, Cory? Do you think that's fair? Totally fair, and I want to watch Steffan puke afterwards. Apparently, he's not going to be allowed back into the apartment if he throws up. Same rule goes to me, apparently. That's just what I've been told. Rumors, accusations. We'll find out if it's true. I can't wait to show that video off. It's going to be broadcasted live here next Monday during the podcast. I don't know if we'll lead it off or we'll keep viewers on edge to find out who won. But I will say it will be shown because I think that interview went well with Steffan. It came across clean. So We'll do it. With that being said, episode 20, we're almost halfway there. We're almost to episode 26, half a year. Cory hasn't been there since the beginning, but he's been pretty close. And I appreciate him sticking around, unlike certain former co-hosts. I think it's fair to call him a former until he's consistently back on. Special guest co-host. How about that? Gets demoted. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. And remember, you can watch this live every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Eastern. Yeah. I think I mixed that up. One too many beers for me tonight. Cory, been great. Thanks.
Yep. See you next week.